Alright, hi. Today we're reading the Nordberg Model Z Adzer self-propelled mechanical muscles, copyright 1961, Nordberg Manufacturing Company. This manual is a guide for the operation routine mounted with an Nordico railroad maintenance machine that covers the technical information, basic operation maintenance procedure, and safety information is provided by the qualified person who will supervise, operate, service the equipment described in here. And the measurements in this manual are given in both metric and customary U.S. unit equivalents. Please responsible for the operation maintenance equipment should thoroughly study the manual before commencing operation maintenance procedure. This manual should be considered a permanent part of the machine should you remain with this machine at all times. Additional copies of the manual are available either as part of the operational manual only with whole operation parts of the manual, nominal counts through our parts sales department. Additional service information, parts application information are available. These Nordico products support resources. At Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. We asked if there are any comments, suggestions about this manual. Let's hear from you. We're here to be service to your customer. Direct comments required. Technical Documentation Department, Nordico Incorporated, 245 West Forest Hill Avenue, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. Hazardous material and efforts to provide information for the necessary equipment, employee safety training, and to meet the requirements of OSHA Hazard Communication Standard 1910 and 1910 and 1200. We use the OSHA Form 20 safety data sheets available with the covered material contained in this machine. If you are interested in receiving this information, please refer to the name, model, serial number of the machine, calling and writing direct inquiries. Nordico, Vice President of Operation, Nordico Incorporated, 245 West Forest Hill Avenue, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154, or fax number 414-766-2299 or 414-766-2288. The operating instruction for the Nordberg Model Z Adzer self-propelled. Our description: the Adzer is self-propelled, one-man operated with the Adzer machine designed to the cut uniform, precise ties, plate seats into the ties. Simple adjustment ensure the cut, location, depth, the width of the cost. The machine consists of a triangular A-frame, which with the engine is carried to the two-wheel truck frame. Movable, the two-wheel truck frame supports the other end of the machine. During the time of the work, the machine is being towed for the work site. The removal of the truck frame includes two wheels, which are with the frame are used for the counterbalance for the machine during the time of this operation. The narrow end of the A-frame contains the cutter head of the spline spindle housing. Cutter head adjustment is provided with the means of the jack screws, which are used to raise and lower the A-frame. When operation of the machine runs two wheels on one rail, it advising the tie seats for the opposite rail while has been limited to the track prior to the Adzer operation. Adjustable guide rollers mounted on the engine end of the frame keep the machine from slipping off the rail. Cutter heads are available in several different diameters to meet the requirements of any user. Cutter bits are specially designed to be self-sharpened and should be rarely and if ever require grinding. Note, if it recommended that the cutter head diameter at least 1.5 inch larger than the width of the plate. The Adzer is operated by one man with a larging rail gains. Two or more machines used together with the first machine making the initial cut and the other machine making portion of the total cut required. The Adzer operator usually assists each other with starting with the engine, changing with the cutter heads, and while making the certain adjustments for the practice is recommended. Preparing the new machine for operation. When the new Adzer is received from the factory, it is arranged for the towing with all four wheels in place. The prepare of the new machine for operation proceeds as follows. Check the engine fuel tank level. The fuel tank necessary used for the good grade of regular gasoline. Fuel tank capacity is 9 gallons. Check the lubricating oil level of the engine and fill the engine crankcase with the lubricating oil with the type listed in the engine nameplate. Engine lubrication oil requirements that depend upon the ambient air temperatures. Engine crankcase capacities of 5 quarts. Normal engine and speed is 1800 RPMs. Check the level of lubricating oil with a hydraulic system tank with the added industrial. Use the good grade SA20 non-detergent oil summer with a comparable to grade with the SA10 non-detergent oil in the winter. The hydraulic oil tank capacity is 2.5 gallons with a corresponding roughly to 1 gallon per inch in tank height. 4. Remove the oil cup from the bottom of the engine. Air filter fill the cup with a level mark on the cup. Using the same oil used in the engine crankcase, reinstall the cup. Apply the grease to all grease fittings using the grease guns applied with the be sure to grease with the 2 fittings for the cutter spindle housing. There are totals 8 grease fittings, the 2 on the spindle housing, 1 each for the wheel with the removal of the truck frame, and 1 each pillow block over each of the wheel axle with the on the truck frame. Alright, 6. Bolt the 4 guide rollers into position on the truck frame. 2. Each on the end of the frame. The guide rollers are located in position. The guide roller lock frame to prevent the machine from leaving the rail during the operation. The guide rollers must be lifted, locked out of the way. Using the guide roller block with the machine that's in transit, which sets the track off the track when it is being used to adds through the street crossings, rail crossing, fog, guardrail, switch points, all their similar locations. Adjustment guide rails are covered under the topic operation, adjustment, and procedure. And see figure 2.1. Or figure 2, the guide rollers, lock pins, adjusting holes, bar lock, and adjusting screw. Figure 3 shows the hydraulic pump and the belt tension adjusting screw. Installing the drive belt from the engine with a pulley with its cutter spindle pulley with the cutter has been must turn the counterclockwise, locking down with the cutter head with the divider belt tension, adjusting of the beams with the slotted mounted bolts in the engine base. The engine base can be moved in the jack screw with the A-frame, which bars against the engine base plate. With the engine base plate with adjustment, be sure to pry the base plate out of the side opposite with the jack screw and maintain with the pry proper engine drive alignment. If this is not done, rapid wear may occur in the drive belt. Also, adjust the hydraulic pump belt tension if the drive belt tension is see figure 3. Disengage the latch lock from the A-frame. Remove the frame with the wheel assembly from the spindle housing end of the A-frame. Do not do this by lifting the operator's handle, moving the Adzer to clear the frame with the wheels. Pick up the truck with wheel from, turn it over, carry it to the engine end of the A-frame, hanging the truck wheel frame on the back end, provided with the A-frame. When the truck wheel frame is in correct position, the counterweight support will be on the bottom side. Install a long flat counterweight on the truck wheel axle as shown in figure 4. Using with a wrench provided, remove the spindle bolt with a nut, bolt nut, lock washer, and cut washer. Allow the cutter, spindle nut, and bolt to drop out of the spindle housing. Then tilt the machine backward until the rest of the counterweight supports with the bracket installed with the cutter head with the guard. Be sure that the side of the guard with the recesses having side of the spindle housing having the grease fitting its hooks into the guard fitting over the A-frame with the arrows to be held with the wing nuts. Be sure the guard is secure. See figure 8.5. Figure 4 shows the removable frame wheel assembly and the counterweight support bracket. 11. Check the cutter head with it being installed to be sure that all the cutter belt bits and secure with the bits are properly adjusted. Describe it under the operating of the adjusting of the procedure. Insert the cutter spindle bottle into the cutter head on the lugs on the bolt head into which the slots for the cutter head. 13. Reinstall the cutter spindle bolt with the cutter head in place with the cutter head spindle. Replace with the cutter washer, lock washer, nut in that order. Check to see if the spindle bolt is fully up and the spindle with this has been with the check and tighten with the outer spindle with the button net bolt necessary. See figure 5. 14. Tilt the machine forward so that the cutter head is support the rest control rod, making the preliminary cut head lever, adjusting using the truck frame leveling screws to level the cutter head to use the spirit level to aid in making the adjustment. See the topic operating adjustment and procedures figure 5 with the further information. 15. Tilt the machine back until again with the rest on the counterweight support. The bracket of the machine is now ready for start. Warning: the operator should always wear safety shin guards and safety goggles. The shin guards may be purchased from the Nordberg manufacturing company. Caution: before starting the engine, all foreign materials should be swept from the ties. Broken and spikes should be driven down below the low level of the cut to be made. Pallets on each side of it should be lowered and well be level of the cut. Our figure 5 shows the rest control rod, ignition switch, spindle pulley, wing nut, guard, recess, cutter head guard, removable washer guard adjustment, spindle housing, truck wheel tilting screw on the right, eccentric lever, the engine base plate, adjusting jack screw, truck frame leveling screw, ratchet, and locking bolts. Figure 6 shows a propulsion lever, ignition switch, propulsion engaging handle, 4-way valve. Operating controls. The following operating controls are furnished in Figure 6. The propulsion lever, the lever operates 4-way level, the valve to change the direction of flow of the hydraulic oil onto the hydraulic motors. The Adzer is arranged so that it will move in the direction that this lever is moved. In the center neutral position, the hydraulic oil pressure to the motors bypassed by 4-way valve, and the machine will not move. Propulsion engine handled. And engage the operator walk along with the machine with the holding the propulsion lever in order to transport the machine to short distances under its own pop. The propulsion engaging handle is arranged to hold the propulsion lever in either engaged position. Operating holders engage the handle until the machine reaches the desired location. Releasing the engaging handle will return the propulsion lever to the normal, stopping the machine over the machine. 3. The ignition switch. The ignition switch is located between the operation handle and the simple on-off toggle switch. Engine choke throttle. The engine choke throttle are located above the engine crank. The choke should be used for cold weather, starting the throttle around range so that it can be located in the desired setting by the turning of the clockwise. Your propulsion system. A schematic diagram of the hydraulic system is shown on page AZ24. The part list, basically, propulsion system consists of the hydraulic pump belt driven from the engine to discharge with a high-pressure oil four-way valve with control with the propulsion lever. The four-way valve is designed so that by the movement of the propulsion lever, the floor high-pressure oil hydraulic motors mounted above each of the wheel can be reversed. The reverse of the direction of the rotation hydraulic motors reverse the direction of the Adzer movement. Or the hydraulic motor is driven by the individual speed reducer, each with the truck frame wheel and chain sprocket arrangement. The chain sprocket arrangement transmits power from the speed reducer to the truck frame wheels. The chain tension adjusting means with the set screw keep the chain tension properly adjusted to prevent unnecessary strain on the hydraulic motor internal parts. See Figure 7. Figure 7 shows the hydraulic motor and adjusting screw, the speed reducer, and the drive chain. Towing the Adzer. The Adzer may be towed from the worksite with the means of the tow bar finished, while the being towed with the removal of the truck frame may be installed with the Adzer arrived with the four wheels installed the removal of the truck frame reverse order removal. Figure 8 shows the guide roller assembly, the jaw clutch, and the detent pin. If the Adzer is to be towed, always disengage the truck frame wheel clutch at the wheel with the pulling out the detent pin, disengage the jaw clutch, and reinstall the detent pin and maintain clutch in disengage position. See Figure 8. Operating adjustment procedure. Two men should start with the engine whenever possible. Start with the engine. Make the operating adjustments as follows. Place the propulsion valve within the valve handle in the neutral centered position. Make sure the engine fuel valve is open to turn off the ignition switch located in the operator's position to the ignition position. 3. While one man holds the operator handles to keep the cutter head of the few inches above the tie, the other man crew cranks the engine until it starts over. However, if one man is available, the engine may be started with the machine is supported by the rest control rod. Caution: if the machine is started with the support of the rest control rod, be absolute sure that there is no one near the cutter head. Select the level tie, bring the cutter head down with the bare of the tie using the propulsion valve handle, engage with the hydraulic motor, make a cut, adzing the tie just enough to obtain the good surface for the gauge leveling checks. Figure 9 shows the resting control rod, ignition switch, spindle, pulley, wing nut, guard recess, guard headed, removal of the washer, gauge adjustment, spindle, housing, truck tilting screw, eccentric lever, engine plate, adjusting screw, truck frame leveling screw, ratchet, and locking bolts. Alright, lift the cutter head clear of the tie, and the stop of the engine using the ignition switch. The ignition switch is located in the operator's position shown in Figure 9. Move the Adzer so that it can be checked for the gauge to be sure. Check the cutout of the spirit level to see if the level of the square. If not, use the truck adjusting screw ratchet to bring the cutter head to the level plane. Make another cut to be ensured the adjusting is made correctly. See Figure 9. Note the two locking bolts of the adjusting bar eccentric lever may be loosened before either the truck adjusting ratchet can be turned to be sure to retighten the locking bolt of the eccentric lever when the adjusting is complete. Note the cutter head must always rest when working on the different heights. Some of the operator scribe lines to indicate the proper adjustment of the various rail heights. The recommended this means making the rough adjustments rapidly, but adjustments should be made checked at each time they're made to be sure obtaining the desired results. If not necessary, to readjust the cutter head when working on the grades or curves. After checking to see that the cutter head level, to check the distance for the interface for the railhead to be sure that the gauge is correct and is not in the inner. Guide roller may be adjusted if the adjusting of the position brings the cutter head for the correct gauge. For the entire guide roller assembly may be removed with the truck with the frame and reinstalled any of the three set with the mounting bolts for the holes in the drill and the truck frame. If the total adjustment is available to move within the guide roller assembly with it still not sufficient, the truck frame wheels may be loosened by means of the locking screw and the tampered bushing for the truck frame wheel. The wheels may be moved in either direction. Correct the location for the cut. Be sure that the lock of the wheels in adjusting position by means of locking screws and tampered bushing. Always adjust the members over the number of the washer and counterweight wheel axles to correspond with the correct gauge for the truck frame wheels to be adjusted. The guide roller should be fit on the railhead as shown in Figure 10. If it becomes necessary to change the cutter head procedure, then same as described in song with the original cutter head, the following exemptions are following. Warning: it is possible the cutter head to be lifted out of the counter spindle with the housing of the tilting of the machine back, keep the feet on the clear with the tilting of the machine, and change the cutter out with the cutter head. Cutter head maintenance: proper the setting with the bits for the cutter head with the result of a smooth cut with equal wear on the bits. Improve the performance better with the balance of the cutter head will result if the bits are approximately at the same length. Or use bit varying length will throw the cutter head out of balance and cause the unnecessary vibration. Alright, this shows figure 10 shows your cutter wheel, the rail and your cutter wheel, the cutting the tie. It shows the guide rollers should fit on the railhead. Is shown figure 10. The guide rollers. These are the guide rollers that ride on the top of the rail on the left side. The gauge is furnished to each of the adzerizing machine to ensure the bits fit all properly. The cutter head, all bits should be set for the cutting edge to put exactly 3/4 inch below the bottom face for the cutter head. The cutter bit with it is ridged down with the center of the length. This is rib fits with the counter bit backing, which slide has received it and therefore holds the cutting edge parallel to the face for the cutter head. The cutter bits are locked in place for the cutter bit, clamped for the cutter bit, bolts and nuts for the chain for the cutter bits, and the reverse them and the proceed as the fowls. Secure the cutter head in position with the flat bottom side out, back off the cutter bit bolt and nut until the cutter bit clamps loose. 3. Slide the old bit out with either replace with the new bit and reverse it with the bit, or reverse the bit. The soft hammer will not dull the bit furnish. Be sure the rib of the bit is seated for the cutting of the back of the sliding of the lever to cut. Big gauge on the face of the cutter head behind the gauge should be extended over the cutting edge of the bit. The bit should be moved until it contacts the underside of the gauge. This bit should protrude exactly 3/4 inch. Retighten the cutter bit clamp bolt. When all the cutter bits are in place, recheck the cutter bit clamp with the bolt and tightness. Remember that the proper setting of the cutter bolts bits require the smoothing adzerizing equal wear of the bits. Alright, cut safety precaution. Cutter head guards should be maintained in good condition, both narrow and wide rubbers should be placed as soon as the wear of the good damage indicate the need. Watch carefully that for spike stubs, the other obstructions might damage the cutter head with an injury of the operator. Lubrication recommendation. Lubricate the engine directly in the manufacturer instruction manual. Lubricate the cutter spindle housing with a good grade with the bearing grease. Once a week, grease gun is provided with the grease. All of the other grease fittings used with the good grade of the grease, and lubricate the truck, adjusting the truck wheel with tilting the screw against for the interval. Use the good grade of the SAE10 or SAE20 lubricating oil. This reducer contained with the proper amount with a mobile 600 W cylinder oil, the equal of 600 weight cylinder oil, which is exactly wooden left this factory. Replace it if after 2 months of the operation. Afterwards, the oil should be changed occasionally. We suggest every 6 months. Never complete fill any of the reducer with the oil. It will cover the oil leak, overheating, which result with the rapid wear of the oil seals before bearing gears. The oil should be on the level when the oil level plugged on the gauge near any higher. Operating hints. Due to the unusual amount of the dust, which is the normal condition during the adzing, particular care should be given with the air cleaner on the engine. Oil in the air cleaner cup that should be changed during the Adzer operation. The entire air cleaner should be cleaned through the time the oil is renewed. It is recommended that the ties adds at the level of the old tile plate and the rail base impression. This will ensure the uniform bearing with the new tie plate and the rail base on the tie will assist in maintaining of the desired good surface and gauge. Instructions for ordering repair parts of the book. This book completely identified with all parts compatible with the Nordberg railway machine 3 ways, part by part number, by name and appearance. The part list with the breakdown of the equipment, major assembly, sub-assemblies, detailed parts. To identify the parts appearance of each of the part of the index and illustration, assembly with which of the first column parts listed and contain the items number that is served with a cross-reference between the listed parts and the same parts illustrated. Indentation. Indentation is part of the description column, indicates the relationship of the part to the assembly, which is the part. For example, any part indented beneath an assembly is available to either detail part or as part of the assembly under the indented part, unless specified NP or not procurable separately. Quantity. The quantity listed are determined as follows. The quantity listed in the assembly indicates the number of these assemblies used with the machine. The exemption list of the assembly street with the detailed parts. The quantity listed with the detail indicate the number of these detailed parts used for assembly. Prompt service information. When ordering these parts, we always also include the following information: the machine serial number, the machine nameplate, the exact quantity of the assembly detail parts that are desired, identified with these parts by the part number, the part name, Specify the method and shipment desires, rush order, and shipment of the repair parts urgently need to make the separate order of the unneeded of the parts. Forward rush order separately with any other order request separate with the shipment to avoid delays. Provide a resource for the other materials left. Letters forward primary for the ordering repair parts for all repair orders. The following address: Nordico, P.O. Box 1562, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201. Or fax 414-481-3199 or 414-414-1769-4607 or 4608. And this has been a reading of the 8-mile CZ Adzer self-propelled Adzer Nordberg machine.